Hello there and welcome to Science for Sleep, a quiet space where your thoughts can soften and the world gently slows down as we drift together into the soft mystery of intelligence, a subject that quietly rests at the center of every memory, every decision, and every dream you have ever had, unfolding like a subtle thread woven through the universe, linking human minds to forests, oceans, animals, and even the silent mathematical structures that shape planets, patterns, and possibilities. Because intelligence is not only a human trait but a presence that expresses itself in countless forms, appearing in the way a bird navigates the wind, the way roots find direction in darkness, the way oceans guide whales across enormous distances, and in the invisible logic that holds galaxies in their spiral embrace. And tonight, as you settle in and allow your eyes to soften, you can imagine intelligence as a hidden current flowing quietly through everything, shaping life in ways too delicate to notice in the rush of the day, sometimes familiar and comforting, sometimes strange and awe-shifting, as if the world is far deeper and more intricate than it seems at the surface. And as you drift into this gentle exploration, it is worth remembering that intelligence remains one of science's greatest and most humbling frontiers, a phenomenon we are only beginning to understand, even though it touches every part of our lives. So if you enjoy these quiet journeys, you are welcome to like, subscribe, or share a peaceful thought, helping another sleepy mind find its way here, one drifting soul at a time. But for now, nothing is required of you except rest, letting your body soften, your breath slow, and your mind drift into a state of wonder where ideas float like lanterns across a still night lake. To understand intelligence, we can begin deep in the nights of early humanity, long before cities, language, or science existed, long before stories were written down or shared as we know them now, when small groups of humans slept under ancient stars with little protection and much vulnerability, wrapped in darkness while predators roamed the land. And inside those resting bodies, the dreaming mind practiced survival silently and safely, free from risk, replaying moments from the day, sometimes strangely changed, letting a hunter relive an encounter with a predator in a safer form, where the escape was smoother, the warning signs clearer, the path easier to navigate, and through thousands of nights and thousands of generations, those quiet rehearsals strengthened instincts, improved reactions, and sharpened awareness without the danger of real-world mistakes. Dreams blended memories with imagination, merging places and faces, emotions and predictions, forming a private mental workshop where early humans could experiment with social situations, future threats, and hidden opportunities, finding solutions in sleep that waking life might never provide. And those individuals whose dream worlds allowed richer practice, deeper creativity, and greater foresight may have moved through life with subtle advantages, greater adaptability, stronger social understanding, and more refined anticipation, which eventually helped give rise to the uniquely complex storytelling intelligence humans carry today. Even now, the brain remains astonishingly active at night, capable of rewriting its own wiring in just a few hours of sleep. After a day spent learning something difficult, whether it is a new skill, a complex idea, a musical phrase, or an emotional challenge, the brain does not simply shut down but instead begins a delicate process of reorganizing billions of neural connections, strengthening pathways that were used repeatedly, weakening those that cause confusion, and adjusting the sensitivity of synapses so that future thinking becomes clearer and faster. Neurons that fire together during the day are more likely to build stronger links at night, creating the foundations for memory, skill, and insight. And during deep sleep, the brain quietly replays patterns of activity from earlier practice, as if running invisible drills without your awareness. By the time morning arrives, clumsy attempts become smoother, difficult concepts settle into place, and problems that once felt tangled reveal new clarity. A piece of music becomes easier to play, patterns in data stand out, a foreign phrase feels more natural, and hidden creative connections emerge in the silent hours when the skull protects a restless city of cells working tirelessly to refine yesterday into a better version of tomorrow. But intelligence is never limited to humans. Some animals quietly surpass us in tasks designed by humans themselves. When scientists craft tests to measure cleverness, they often assume human minds will reach the highest scores, yet many animals overturn those expectations. Pigeons outperform humans in probability tasks, choosing mathematically optimal answers more consistently than many adults, who are often swayed by stories or intuition. Certain primates can recall symbol locations after just a fraction of a second, performing far beyond the typical human range. These abilities are not simply tricks or reflexes. They represent specialized strengths shaped by evolutionary pressures, skills honed for survival in unique environments. While humans excel at language, metaphor, imagination, and long-term planning, other creatures shine in precision, pattern recognition, sensory detail, and fast decision-making. The tests we create often reflect human assumptions about what intelligence should look like, and in those narrow reflections, other species sometimes stand taller. And within the human brain, intelligence often begins long before we consciously feel it. A tiny portion of the brain can predict your decisions seconds before you are aware of choosing. Long before your mind forms a conscious intention, neurons involved in movement planning and action selection begin shifting toward one outcome, their electrical signals slowly building as they integrate evidence, memories, habits, and subtle preferences gathered from experiences stretching across your entire life. Researchers can sometimes guess what choice you will make, left or right, yes or no, pick up or pause, before you consciously recognize your decision, suggesting that conscious awareness acts more like a narrator who steps onto the stage after the crucial moment has already begun. This does not eliminate agency or responsibility. Rather, it reveals that decisions are not single flashes of intention but the visible peaks of deeper neural waves rising beneath the surface of awareness. Surprisingly, the foundation of intelligence is not the ability to take in more information but the ability to ignore almost all of it. Every moment, your senses receive far more input than your brain can process. Light, sound, pressure, texture, temperature, movement, internal chemical signals. And intelligent behavior depends on the brain's ability to discard the irrelevant, filter out the repetitive, and focus on what truly matters. The steady hum of a fan fades into the background, the pressure of clothing disappears, and familiar surroundings blur into a simplified internal representation, allowing your mind to track change, opportunity, and threat without drowning in detail. The art of ignoring becomes one of the most powerful cognitive tools. By simplifying the world, the brain builds cleaner models that highlight cause and consequence, enabling planning, reasoning, and creativity to emerge. In the ocean, certain octopuses solve puzzles they have never encountered before. Presented with a closed container that faintly smells of food, an octopus explores the object with flexible arms covered in sensitive suckers, testing edges, seams, hinges, and surfaces. Its nervous system is unique, distributed across its limbs rather than concentrated in its head, allowing each arm to think locally, test locally, gather information locally, all while feeding data into a shared goal. Without ever being taught, an octopus may twist a cap, slide a lock, or remove a plug with startling speed and elegance, displaying a form of intelligence evolved entirely separately from the vertebrate brain. When the container finally opens, the solution represents the convergence of tactile memory, curiosity, and flexible problem-solving, revealing a mind shaped not by human logic but by the demands of a fluid, three-dimensional world. And in your own brain, creativity arises from the mixing of signals that were never meant to interact. Networks originally evolved from movement now support abstract reasoning. Regions that track physical space help you navigate social dynamics, conversations, and even mathematical relationships. When you relax and let your thoughts drift, far-flung neural regions begin to synchronize in unexpected ways, linking emotional memories with factual knowledge, sensory imagery with verbal concepts, old experiences with imagined futures. Signals cross boundaries, meeting in association zones that act like mental crossroads where unrelated fragments collide, sparking novel combinations much like stones striking at odd angles and creating sudden moments of insight that seem magical even though they arise from gradual neural blending beneath the surface. Even trees, in their quiet stillness, participate in forms of communication so sophisticated they resemble primitive thought. When a leaf is bitten by an insect, chemical defenses activate almost instantly, producing bitter compounds that make the plant less appealing. Simultaneously, airborne molecules drift into the air, warning nearby trees of the same species to strengthen their own defenses. Underground, roots partner with fungal networks in a web often called the Wood Wide Web, allowing nutrients, signals, and distress messages to travel between trees, enabling a struggling tree to receive resources from a thriving neighbor or send warnings about drought, disease, or pests. The timing, direction, and specificity of these chemical messages create patterns that closely resemble problem-solving, slow, silent, and ancient, yet intelligent in their own way. Through all these examples, intelligence emerges not as a single feature contained in a single species but as a spectrum of abilities expressed throughout nature, shaped by environment, purpose, and survival. It is a whisper in the dreams of our ancestors, a chemical message drifting through a forest, a signal sparking across neurons, a puzzle solved in the quiet water of a reef, and even a moment of insight arising gently within your own mind as you listen, breathe, and slowly drift towards sleep. Without neurons or a central brain, the forest still manages to gather information, spread it, and respond in ways that benefit the community, revealing a kind of slow, silent intelligence woven through the living world. The brain, in contrast, simulates entire futures in the time it takes you to blink, rehearsing outcomes before you ever step off a curb, reach for a handhold, or open your mouth to speak. Deep within regions that handle memory, navigation, and prediction, patterns of activity rush through imagined possibilities faster than your body could ever move, allowing your mind to test dozens of paths, anticipate obstacles, and evaluate how others might react, all before you consciously realize you are planning. Most of this work flows through the subconscious, compressed into moments so brief they feel instantaneous. And when you finally act, your choice carries the imprint of countless invisible rehearsals. This same machinery supports long-term planning, the ability to picture a future career, a shifting relationship, or a creative dream unfolding across months or years, all inside a moment of gentle daydreaming. By running these compressed futures, the brain allows you to sample the benefits of experience without facing every danger, so each action you take is shaped by echoes of unrealized worlds that existed for only a heartbeat in your mind. Human intelligence itself may depend on neurons that fire in patterns that are beautifully imperfect. If each neuron behaved with machine-like precision, your mind would act like a flawless clock, predictable, rigid, and lacking flexibility. Instead, neurofiring is full of tiny variations. A cell may respond strongly to a signal one moment, and weakly the next, even when the stimulus is nearly identical. Though it may look like noise, this variability expands the brain's expressive power, giving it the ability to represent subtle shades of meaning rather than simple yes or no categories. Networks of such cells can explore countless internal states while remaining stable enough for complex thinking. In this flexible regime, even a small change in experience can nudge patterns of activity into new configurations that encode fresh insights. The mind becomes capable of generalizing, handling ambiguity, and blending ideas in unprecedented ways, showing that intelligence grows not from perfect precision, but from structured imperfection woven through the brain's countless cells. Consider bees, whose brains are smaller than a grain of sand, yet can recognize human faces. In a world filled with moving petals and shifting colors, a bee must quickly separate friend from foe, nectar-rich blossoms from empty distractions. Despite having only a few thousand neurons, the bee can learn to distinguish individual human faces with surprising accuracy. It does this not by forming a human-like perception of a face, but by breaking an image into patterns of edges, shapes, and contrasts, storing the configuration as a visual signature. When the same person reappears, the bee compares the signature with its memory and reacts accordingly. This astonishing skill emerges from an ultra-efficient neural system that focuses only on the most informative features, creating a lean but powerful form of recognition. Intelligence, then, does not depend solely on brain size. It can arise from elegant design and the ability to extract meaning from small fragments of perception. Meanwhile, your own brain predicts the world before it sees it, and then treats its mistaken guesses as reality. Every moment, your mind constructs a silent prediction of what will happen next. Before a sound becomes conscious or a shape becomes clear, internal models anticipate the world using memories, expectations, and patterns learned over a lifetime. When sensory information finally arrives, the brain blends it with its prediction so smoothly that the scene disappears. The result is an effortless experience of continuity. Yet, these guesses are not always accurate. The brain fills in missing details, invents edges that are not truly there, and smooths contradictions that might otherwise confuse you. This delicate dance between expectation and sensation creates your sense of reality, a refined story shaped more by prediction than raw information. Dolphins, moving through shimmering blue corridors of the ocean, reveal another layer of intelligence through whistles that are not merely sounds but symbols. These whistles curve and ripple like underwater melodies, full of rhythm and variation. Dolphins invent new whistles when encountering unfamiliar situations, creating custom acoustic shapes to represent novel objects, unique individuals, or new experiences. In social groups, these invented sounds spread as companions learn to interpret them, forming shared meaning. This expanding vocal repertoire, driven by the demands of cooperation, hunting, and complex social bonds, acts like a cognitive toolkit. Dolphins form new associations whenever the world presents something unexpected, showing that intelligence can unfold through sound in ways we are only beginning to understand. The mind, whether human or animal, often learns fastest when it completely misunderstands something first. At the heart of deep learning lies a paradox. When your brain forms an incorrect assumption, the tension between expectation and evidence produces powerful fuel for growth. Misunderstandings expose the boundaries of existing knowledge and force the brain to reorganize its internal models. Neurons that once fired with confidence must now shift, creating new patterns that accommodate the updated reality. When a correction arrives, whether in a child struggling with a math concept, an adult confronting a mistaken belief, or an AI refining its predictions after an error, it produces a sharper, more resilient understanding. The initial confusion opens cognitive space where new connections form more easily, making the mind more alert, flexible, and capable of insight. Ravens demonstrate yet another form of intelligence. They can plan several moves ahead without ever practicing the task. Perched on a windswept branch, a raven may eye a distant reward that requires a sequence of precise actions it has never performed before. Without trial or instruction, it evaluates the available objects and selects the tool that will allow later steps to succeed. This remarkable ability reflects an inner simulation, in which the raven mentally rehearses possible events before acting. It imagines how each object might behave, how obstacles could be overcome, and how its movements will interact with the environment. Such foresight requires an understanding of causality and physical principles far beyond simple instinct. In these moments of quiet planning, the raven exhibits reasoning that rivals much larger brains. Human creativity may emerge from neural noise that other species filter out. Inside the brain, electrical signals do not flow with perfect order. Mixed within purposeful firing is a layer of irregular activity that seems random. Many species suppress this noise for precision, but humans appear to preserve some of it. This gentle turbulence in neural activity creates a wider space for the mind to wander, allowing remote ideas to collide and form unexpected combinations. It is part of what enables imagination, metaphor, invention, and artistic expression. Without this noise, thought would be narrow and mechanical. With it, the mind becomes a landscape full of possibility. This gentle chaos creates opportunities for unlikely connections to form, letting ideas that normally remain distant drift close enough to blend into something new and unexpected, as if the mind becomes a quiet ocean where currents shift without warning and bring together thoughts that rarely meet. A stray memory may collide with a sensory impression, and a half-formed image may merge with a mathematical concept, giving rise to possibilities that were invisible only moments before. These encounters generate new layers of meaning, often without any conscious effort, unfolding in the background of awareness like hidden constellations emerging behind drifting clouds. When attention relaxes, when the mind is no longer narrowed by the demands of immediate tasks, the internal noise grows louder and more textured, allowing inner landscapes to widen and thoughts to wander more freely through remote regions of imagination. Over time, structured patterns begin to appear from that wandering, giving rise to metaphors, inventions, stories, and imaginative leaps that seem like gifts arriving from nowhere. Creativity gradually becomes the art of shaping this controlled turbulence into something meaningful, a process of sculpting patterns from motion and insight from chaos. In the natural world, meanwhile, elephants comfort distressed herd mates with behaviors that resemble empathy, showing that emotional intelligence exists far beyond human boundaries. In a savanna shimmering with heat, an elephant senses agitation in a companion and approaches with deliberate calm, responding not out of instinct alone but through an awareness of another being's internal state. The touch of a trunk across the face or shoulder carries a soothing pressure, conveying reassurance more effectively than any spoken language. A soft rumble vibrates through the air, a frequency tuned to comfort, and other elephants gather quietly, offering presence rather than force. These responses arise from a shared emotional understanding within the group. Elephants track the mood of their herd, remembering past events that shaped each relationship and learning how each individual responds to stress or uncertainty. When one suffers fear, grief, or confusion, the others react with comfort that seems to come from shared feeling rather than simple imitation. This emotional intelligence supports the cohesion of their social structure, allowing families to endure hardship, migrate across challenging landscapes, and protect vulnerable members. Their comfort behaviors reveal that the roots of empathy can grow in minds shaped by entirely different evolutionary paths, carried forward by memory, sensitivity, and deep relational bonds. In a different realm of understanding, artificial intelligence models reveal patterns in nature that no human had imagined before. Modern learning systems can sift through intricate data that spans oceans, climates, and ecosystems, analyzing relationships that are too vast or too subtle for any single human mind to perceive. Although they do not think or feel in a human sense, their ability to detect patterns opens new windows into the natural world. When given satellite images, they uncover hidden rhythms in the movements of forests, currents, and animal populations, revealing cycles that were previously invisible. When trained on astronomical measurements, they expose relationships between distant stars and swirling clouds of dust that had eluded researchers for decades. These discoveries arise not from intuition but from an unbiased search through enormous spaces of possibility, where millions of patterns are tested without fatigue or preconception. By highlighting connections too complex for human perception, these models expand our understanding of how life and the universe organize themselves into systems of remarkable elegance. Their predictions become hypotheses that scientists can explore, turning computational insight into empirical discovery, and creating a partnership in which human creativity and computational precision weave together new stories about nature. This broadening of understanding continues in the minds of parrots, which have shown the capacity to grasp abstract rules that even children sometimes struggle with. In the presence of colored shapes, objects of different sizes, or patterns arranged in deliberate sequences, some parrots can identify rules not tied to specific items but to relationships among them. They can tell when two things match in a certain property, even when the examples change completely, demonstrating cognition based not merely on memorization but on conceptual reasoning. When asked to apply a familiar rule to a new set of objects, they do so without hesitation, extending their understanding confidently into unfamiliar territory. Their reasoning emerges from the interplay of social intelligence, problem-solving skills, and natural curiosity, a curiosity that drives them to manipulate objects, explore cause and effect, and communicate in complex ways with flock members. As they navigate these social landscapes, their minds develop structures capable of handling subtle ideas and adapting strategies based on context. What looks simple on the surface reflects a sophisticated internal logic, showing that intelligence evolves in many forms, shaped by the demands of social living, exploration, and communication. In the human mind, memory follows a similarly dynamic pattern. Your brain stores memories not by preserving them unchanged but by rewriting them each time they are recalled. A memory is not a photograph preserved in perfect detail. Rather, each act of retrieval changes its structure slightly. The brain reconstructs experiences from fragments scattered across sensory, emotional, and interpretive regions, stitching them together into a coherent whole shaped by present circumstances. During this reconstruction, memories become open to alteration, new details blend with old ones, interpretations shift, and the narrative transforms to match who you are at that moment. Once returned to storage, the memory carries these revisions with it. This process allows memories to remain flexible, adapting to new understanding and new environments, shaping the past with the influence of the present. It creates a library of experiences that remains relevant to life's evolving challenges instead of freezing moments in rigid form. Meanwhile, in the deep ocean, squid neurons use exotic biochemistry that lets them edit their own genetic messages. In the dim water where quick decisions mean survival, squid rely on a nervous system built for rapid action, instant color changes, and sudden bursts of movement. Their neurons use a biochemical strategy that allows them to rewrite portions of their RNA, the molecules that serve as working copies of genetic instructions. Instead of relying solely on fixed DNA information, squid can adjust RNA sequences to fine-tune protein behavior, giving them adaptability on a moment-to-moment basis. This enables them to respond to shifts in temperature, changes in currents, and countless environmental pressures. By editing RNA in real time, they can alter how electrical signals travel along their giant axons, maintaining precise control over their fast-moving bodies. This ability reveals a form of molecular intelligence operating beneath conscious awareness, a cellular system capable of adapting continuously to the fluid world around them. In human culture, music acts as another system that reshapes the brain, restructuring thought patterns in ways that increase spatial reasoning. When musical tones rise and fall in carefully arranged sequences, the brain forms patterns of expectation that synchronize neural activity across regions involved in timing, planning, and prediction. Listening to music can guide these rhythms into organized states that encourage clearer, more coherent thought. Over time, such pattern stimulation influences how the brain processes spatial relationships, such as rotations, distances, and geometric transformations. Practicing a musical instrument deepens this effect, enhancing fine motor control, auditory discrimination, and working memory all at once. As these systems strengthen, they knit together more efficiently, allowing the mind to form sharper mental maps and track complex spatial structures with greater ease. The structured flow of melody and harmony encourages the brain to explore new connections, supporting reasoning not only in music but also in mathematics, navigation, and visual imagination. Music thus becomes a quiet architect of cognition, shaping the patterns of the mind subtly but powerfully. In the plant world, certain species anticipate light cycles and begin adjusting their growth before dawn arrives. Long before the sun rises, they alter orientation, metabolism, and internal chemistry, even in controlled environments where external light remains constant. These behaviors emerge from internal clocks within their cells, circadian rhythms built from cycles of gene activation and suppression that track the passage of time. As dawn approaches, plants activate processes that prepare their leaves for photosynthesis, shifting molecular pathways that optimize energy absorption the moment sunlight touches their surfaces. These internal clocks reveal that even organisms without nervous systems maintain precise timing mechanisms, allowing them to coordinate growth with the changing rhythms of the planet. Through these biological, cognitive, and environmental systems, whether in the wandering landscapes of the human mind, the compassionate interactions of elephants, the conceptual leaps of parrots, the dynamic memories of human experience, the molecular adaptability of squid neurons, the structured influence of music, or the timekeeping mechanisms of plants. Life reveals itself as a tapestry woven from countless forms of intelligence, each adapting in its own way to the world, each contributing to the spectrum of creativity, resilience, and complexity that defines existence. Plants adjust the opening of tiny pores, redistribute sugars, and alter growth hormones so they can gather energy more efficiently when the first light finally arrives. And this anticipation helps them survive in environments where every moment of sunlight matters, revealing a quiet sophistication behind their internal clocks. Without nerves or brains, they still sense patterns that stretch far beyond immediate conditions, responding not just to what is but to what is about to be. Meanwhile, your brain creates entire internal universes to test ideas before you speak them. Within the folds of the cortex, networks spring to life whenever you consider possibilities. And as you prepare to express a thought, the brain generates internal simulations that unfold imagined consequences, allowing mental spaces to form where fragments of memory, sensory impressions, and abstract concepts combine into miniature worlds where ideas can be tested without risk. When you explore a problem, the mind activates these internal landscapes, letting possibilities rise and dissolve before any words form. Each such universe is shaped by experience, emotion, and knowledge, yet remains flexible enough to support new combinations. In these quiet rehearsals, the brain evaluates meaning, adjusts phrasing, and settles on the version of an idea that best reflects your intention. Much of this process occurs beneath awareness, giving the illusion that thoughts emerge fully formed when in reality they arise from countless unseen trials. Crows, too, demonstrate cognitive depth. They understand the concept of zero as a meaningful quantity of nothing, distinguishing between symbols that represent different numbers, including one that stands for none at all. They treat this absence as a real value, placing it correctly on a mental number line, and when shown varying amounts of objects, they respond differently to the case where nothing is present, showing that zero is not merely an empty space but a defined concept with its own place in a sequence. This insight requires a sophisticated mental framework capable of generalizing rules about order and magnitude. In the wild, such reasoning likely helps them evaluate risks, track resources, or interpret subtle environmental cues. Their grasp of zero reveals that abstract reasoning can emerge in minds shaped by evolutionary paths far from our own. Ant colonies, by contrast, behave like distributed minds that solve problems no single ant could comprehend. Within a colony, thousands of individuals follow simple rules based on pheromone cues, local interactions, and shared responsibilities. And yet, when these behaviors combine, the colony displays intricate strategies that appear far more intelligent than any individual. They regulate temperature inside their nests by adjusting airflow through complex networks of tunnels. They locate efficient foraging routes by letting the most successful paths acquire stronger chemical trails. And they defend against invaders using coordinated maneuvers that shift with the size and position of the threat. This emergent intelligence arises from distributed processing where no leader directs the group. Instead, information flows through movement, chemical signals, and constant labor, turning the colony into a living network capable of flexible problem solving. Human intelligence itself may have deep roots in similar forms of collective behavior, particularly storytelling. Early human groups used stories to shape understanding of dangers, resources, alliances, and memories. Around shared fires, people described experiences, passed down knowledge, and interpreted meaning from events. These shared narratives allowed communities to accumulate wisdom that far exceeded any one individual's life, preserving insight across generations. Young members learned from the stories of elders, understanding past events they had never personally witnessed. Over time, this created a collective memory that evolved alongside the genetics of each population. Minds that could craft clearer stories, interpret meaning with greater nuance, or imagine the experiences of others gained social advantages. Storytelling encouraged empathy, cooperation, and long-term planning, helping early humans coordinate hunts, maintain alliances, and navigate complex social dynamics. Intelligence thus became intertwined with the ability to weave meaning into the arc of experience. Whales, too, share forms of communication that resemble multi-layered languages. Their vocalizations travel through vast stretches of ocean, containing repeating units, shifting patterns, and extended sequences lasting minutes or hours. Some species combine basic sound elements into motifs that form long songs varying by region and social group. Individuals adapt their calls and response to companions by adjusting timing, pitch, and rhythm. These frogs may detect subtle gradients in humidity, electromagnetic fields, or some unknown sensory signal. Whatever the mechanism, they possess an environmental awareness that guides them through landscapes where humans would quickly lose their way. Their effortless navigation hints at sensory worlds still undiscovered. Human problem solving, meanwhile, often improves when the mind begins to wander. When focus softens and attention drifts away from a stubborn problem, the brain does not switch off but rather shifts activity into networks that connect distant memories, impressions, and forgotten details. This roaming state allows ideas to combine in new ways that strict concentration suppresses. A passing smell might evoke a childhood scene, or a sound might spark a forgotten insight. While folding laundry, walking a familiar path, or lying awake in the dark, The brain continues reshuffling patterns beneath awareness. Possibilities that once seemed invisible slide into view, and an approach that felt impossible suddenly becomes obvious. This effect appears in artists, scientists, and anyone confronting complex choices. Wandering thought forms a quiet workshop where new structures of understanding emerge. What looks like distraction from the outside becomes, on the inside, a deep reorganization of how a problem is framed. Termite mounds provide another example of distributed intelligence. They behave like climate-regulating machines built by collective instinct. In regions of intense heat and heavy rain, towering structures arise grain by grain, constructed by thousands of tiny workers. Inside, air flows through networks of passages that channel heat and moisture in intricate patterns, maintaining remarkably stable conditions for the colony. Each insect follows simple rules, carrying soil to areas that feel too warm or damp, removing material from stagnant regions, responding to subtle changes in scent or temperature, and from these countless actions, a self-adjusting ventilation system emerges. As seasons shift, the mound adapts, opening new channels and closing others. No single termite holds the blueprint, yet the structure behaves as if it were designed with careful engineering. In effect, it becomes a self-tuning device that measures and balances internal climate using nothing more than instinct amplified across thousands of bodies. Even infants display surprising forms of intelligence. Long before they understand words, babies track statistical regularities in their environment. When they observe shapes appearing in patterns or hear streams of syllables, their gaze reveals that they notice which combinations are common or rare. This early sensitivity lays the foundation for learning language, interpreting social cues, and understanding cause and effect. It shows that the human mind begins building models of the world from the first months of life, gathering patterns automatically. Across species and systems, plants anticipating dawn, brains rehearsing ideas, crows grasping zero, ants forming collective intelligence, humans weaving narratives, whales singing layered songs, frogs navigating hidden paths, termites engineering climate-controlled structures, and infants learning patterns before speech. Nature demonstrates that intelligence and adaptation take countless forms. They emerge in cells, communities, and ecosystems, evolving through time into intricate strategies that let life explore, understand, and respond to the world in ways both visible and hidden. These examples, scattered across species and environments, reveal that intelligence is not a single trait lodged in brain tissue but a spectrum of adaptive strategies. The infant silently tallying probabilities, the jellyfish reshaping its pulse after an encounter, the wolf signaling strategy through a flick of the ears, the human mind simulating another's thoughts. The coral reef coordinating survival through chemical negotiation, all of them contribute to a wider understanding of how living systems learn, predict, adapt, and create coherence from the chaos of experience, whether through electrical sparks, chemical signals, instinctive rules, or collective rhythms. In each case, intelligence emerges not from isolated parts but from patterns of connection, from the dance between environment and organism, from the constant attempt to fit new events into old models or reshape those models to accommodate unfamiliar possibilities. These countless processes, from the microscopic shifts in a jellyfish's nerve ring to the sweeping foresight of human civilization, reveal that learning is not merely the accumulation of information but the art of reshaping oneself in response to the world, an endlessly unfolding dialogue between the inner and the outer, the immediate and the imagined, the individual and the collective, all woven together in ways we are only beginning to understand. Animals that live in close cooperation often develop early forms of fairness, and monkeys provide one of the clearest examples. When two companions perform similar tasks but one receives a sweeter or more desirable reward while the other is given something of lower value, the slighted individual may refuse its own reward, turn away from the giver in visible frustration, or display clear agitation. Even though rejecting food brings no immediate benefit, this seemingly irrational reaction carries long-term meaning because by objecting to the uneven outcome, the animal asserts an expectation that cooperation should yield balanced returns rather than exploitation, and across repeated interactions these responses create pressure for more even treatment within the group, shaping social stability by encouraging partners to consider one another's reactions in future exchanges. Young monkeys observing such encounters gradually absorb these expectations, forming an intuitive sense of what counts as acceptable sharing and what violates the unspoken rules of group life. This early sense of fairness emerges not from formal laws or language but from the daily pressures of coexistence, where maintaining long-term harmony depends more on mutual regard than simple dominance. Intelligence, however, is not confined to primates or even to creatures with complex brains. Artificial systems, for example, can discover mathematical patterns that no human has ever described, sifting through immense landscapes of shapes, sequences, and symbolic structures far too vast for human intuition to navigate. These systems test combinations that would require human researchers' lifetimes of sustained work, exploring exotic regions of mathematical space and uncovering hidden regularities within equations, curves, and algebraic objects that reveal surprising relationships no one previously imagined. When human mathematicians examine these discoveries, they can translate them into formal reasoning, expanding the boundaries of the field. In this way, artificial systems become companions in our search for deeper order, exposing unexpected symmetries, revealing hidden shortcuts, and opening doors to new layers of structure within problems studied for centuries. Reminding us that mathematics contains immense landscapes where only an intelligence capable of tireless exploration can illuminate the most distant corners. Yet human intelligence itself rests on biological structures far more delicate and intricate than any piece of software. Deep within the brain's woven tissue lie specialized cells that shape electrical signals with extraordinary finesse, guiding impulses along branching pathways, softening, strengthening, redirecting, or slowing them in ways that sculpt how thoughts unfold. These cells form a subtle language spoken between neurons, one built not from words but from faint shifts in voltage, gentle delays, and precisely timed pulses that add nuance to every act of understanding. Through this hidden choreography, they help the brain transition between stillness and activity, between emotion and clarity, between habit and insight, and without their constant whispering influence, intelligence would become rigid, brittle, and shallow. Instead, their shaping of electrical patterns enriches the mind with creativity, flexibility, and depth. Self-awareness, another hallmark of complex intelligence, can be found in surprising places. Certain fish, observing themselves in mirrors that shimmer like shifting windows in clear water, behave in ways that reveal a striking awareness of self. When they see a mark placed on their bodies, they attempt to remove it after viewing it in the reflection, indicating that they understand the image belongs to their own body rather than another animal. This behavior requires more than visual recognition, it demands an internal model of the self, an understanding of personal boundaries, and an ability to distinguish inner experience from the external world. Such fish adjust their posture, inspect themselves, and behave with deliberate intention rather than reflex, revealing cognitive capacities that challenge assumptions about where self-awareness begins. In the quiet flicker of a mirror, a mind discovers itself. Human minds also exhibit a unique and powerful tendency, the instinct to build stories out of scattered details, identifying patterns even when none exist, a trait rooted in ancient survival pressures. Early humans benefited immensely from perceiving structure in the environment, even faint or misleading ones, because detecting a possible predator, path, or opportunity earlier than others could mean the difference between life and death. Over generations, the brain evolved into a master storyteller, weaving fragments into coherent narratives that explain events, guide decisions, and make the world feel comprehensible. This instinct can lead to false impressions, as when people see animals in clouds or meaning in coincidences, yet it also fuels creativity, imagination, and discovery. Providing emotional coherence and encouraging exploration, we make sense of the unknown by shaping it into a story that feels whole. Social species continue to rely on shared knowledge, and bats offer a remarkable example of collective learning. Within dark roosts and moonlit skies, they pass feeding strategies from one individual to another through close observation and imitation, so that when a single bat discovers a new food source or an innovative method for accessing nourishment hidden within tough fruits or flowers, others mirror the behavior until the entire colony adopts it, transforming a lone innovation into a communal tradition. Young bats follow experienced adults on nightly foraging flights, memorizing routes, techniques, and timing until the skills become second nature. Through this cultural transmission, colonies adapt with astonishing agility to changing environments, passing strategies not through genes but through lived demonstrations and shared experience. Curiosity, one of the most powerful engines of learning, ignites in the human mind when confronting something unpredictable. When expectations fail, the brain responds with heightened attention, neural circuits activate more intensely, absorbing detail with richer sensitivity, and this surge of interest encourages deeper exploration, drawing the mind into unfamiliar territory where memory forms more strongly and understanding expands. The internal songs of the brain's rhythmic networks shift subtly as you change pace, direction, or intention, adjusting the mental representation of space and giving structure to the world inside the mind, for without these continuous pulses navigation would become chaotic and unstable, leaving perception without its organizing framework. And just as neural rhythms guide human movement, large predators across grasslands, forests, and icy tundra guide their young through lessons that resemble apprenticeships, teaching them not only through instinct but through lived practice, demonstrating the art of stalking, the precision of timing, and the delicate reading of wind direction so the young can learn to approach silently, coordinate effectively, and build confidence in the complex skills needed for survival, with adults stepping in only when danger threatens but otherwise allowing juveniles to attempt difficult tasks, revealing a deep tradition of mentorship that passes knowledge through generations as lived experience rather than rigid genetic programming. And much like these shared lessons, human language itself may have begun when early ancestors played with sounds, gestures, and marks simply for the joy of experimentation, creating playful patterns that companions echoed until consistent associations formed, gradually building symbolic systems through curiosity and imitation, transforming joyful mimicry into communication as structure grew out of shared delight, and understanding emerged from creative exploration long before language became a deliberate tool for preserving thought. And in the quiet micro-world of leaves and webs, certain spiders make decisions that unfold like miniature strategic plans as they examine terrain, test surfaces, and choose routes requiring multiple sequential steps, sometimes exploring an area, retreating to a safe point, and later returning to follow a path they previously evaluated, revealing an internal process that stores temporary information about distance, opportunity, and ambush positioning, demonstrating that even in tiny bodies intelligence can emerge through organized decision-making. And inside the human visual system, the brain understands motion before it recognizes what is moving, as ancient neural circuits react instantly to shifts in direction or speed, preparing the body for action even before conscious recognition begins, and only afterward assembling shape, texture, and identity, giving humans a powerful perceptual advantage in a world where early motion cues can signal danger or opportunity, thus revealing that understanding movement is not an advanced refinement but one of sight's earliest evolutionary purposes. And similar hidden depth appears in the way apes create tools, revealing their ability to infer invisible forces such as leverage, tension, strength, and reach, as they test branches, reshape sticks, discard ineffective objects, and even combine materials to create functional forms they have never seen, showing that their reasoning extends beyond mimicry into genuine mechanical insight and linking animal cognition to the earliest sparks of human invention. And within the brain, sudden insight emerges when neural networks shift into a metastable state, either fully ordered nor chaotic, allowing separate stores of information to interact freely, creating unexpected relationships that manifest as sudden clarity, when a problem that once felt impossible becomes obvious. And this flexible rearrangement of ideas, occurring without direct conscious force, settles afterward into a new stable pattern that preserves the new understanding, revealing that insight arises not through strain but through a temporary loosening of the mind's usual boundaries. And birds with tiny brains demonstrate complex logical reasoning once thought impossible without a cortex, using densely packed neurons arranged in efficient networks to understand cause and effect, track rules, evaluate options, and solve relational tasks with structured reasoning rather than mimicry, proving that intelligence depends not on brain size but on organization and connectivity, challenging long-held assumptions about how thought is built. And in the ocean's quiet architecture, coral polyps share nutrients in intricate patterns that resemble resource planning, transferring energy toward injured or shaded sections of the colony while reducing their own demands when necessary, creating a dynamic system that behaves like a distributed intelligence, maintaining balance through communication and cooperation rather than central control, revealing how life can plan without a planner. And human genius often emerges from the ability to combine unrelated ideas, blending concepts that seem incompatible and allowing new structures, theories, inventions, and stories to form in the rich space where mismatched notions meet, for genius thrives in these unexpected unions that rearrange the familiar into forms that feel astonishingly original, continuing the timeless pattern in which intelligence, across species, environments, and scales, reveals itself through rhythm, mentorship, play, planning, perception, reasoning, collaboration, flexibility, and creativity, shaping the world through endless, interconnected expressions of understanding. The dynamics of social intelligence often unfold through subtle gestures, small choices, and strategic decisions that ripple across entire groups, shaping alliances, trust, and long-term stability in ways that mirror the earliest forms of negotiation found in human societies. And every action taken by an individual can alter the social landscape in meaningful ways. An animal may choose to quietly support a particular ally in a critical moment, strengthening a bond that one day may return as protection, while another may initiate reconciliation after conflict through gestures that soften tension, recognizing intuitively that long-lasting hostility drains energy, weakens both sides, and damages collective resilience, and some simply observe, waiting for the right moment to influence a situation with minimal risk, showing a quiet intelligence built on memory, prediction, and emotional sensitivity. These behaviors demonstrate advanced cognition because they require awareness of past interactions, anticipation of future responses, and a deep sense of how multiple relationships interlock to create group harmony. And within these silent exchanges and shifting glances lies the foundation of strategic social reasoning that would one day blossom fully in humans, shaping diplomacy, cooperation, and complex alliances. Human intelligence follows a similar pattern of expansion, especially when the mind engages with ideas that stretch just beyond its current understanding, occupying a delicate zone where concepts are challenging but not impossible, requiring effort yet promising mastery. In this cognitive sweet spot, the brain activates additional neural resources, calling working memory, attention, and logical reasoning into tighter coordination as it reaches toward comprehension, forging links between familiar knowledge and the unfamiliar structures it encounters, and each small success strengthens motivation, while each small failure reveals gaps that can be bridged through curiosity and persistence, gradually expanding mental capacity. This zone of proximal difficulty is where growth thrives, and individuals who repeatedly seek out such challenges in science, philosophy, art, mathematics, or the puzzles of everyday life develop increasingly complex frameworks of understanding because intelligence does not grow by remaining within the boundaries of what is already known, but by reaching into the near unknown and transforming uncertainty into clarity. Animals across the tree of life reveal their own versions of abstract reasoning, defying the older assumption that such abilities belong only to humans. Parrots, for example, can form concepts of same and different, much like young children, examining pairs or collections of objects and determining whether they match in color, number, or shape even when the objects are completely new, demonstrating that they are not merely memorizing responses but applying generalized rules across situations, showing an understanding of abstract comparison that evolved along a very different path from primate cognition, emerging through vocal learning, social curiosity, and flexible problem-solving that reflects the deep intelligence hidden within avian brains. Meanwhile, neural networks in many species reveal that memory is not confined to the brain alone. In some animals, the immune system itself stores traces of past experiences not limited to pathogens but extending to stress, trauma, and environmental patterns, and as immune cells adapt repeatedly, their biochemical states influence neurofunction by altering the chemical environment in which neurons operate, creating a subtle physiological record of lived experience distributed through both the nervous and immune systems. And in certain cases, these immune-based patterns of memory even transfer to offspring, meaning that newborns inherit bodies already shaped by events their ancestors endured, expanding the definition of memory beyond synapses into a complex, intergenerational system of learning embedded within the body. Human consciousness adds another layer of complexity because the experience of choice emerges only after countless unconscious processes have already unfolded beneath the surface. Before a person feels a decision forming, sensory systems have gathered information, emotional centers have evaluated potential outcomes, and motor planning structures have begun tilting toward action. And only when this hidden activity reaches a certain threshold does conscious awareness step in, narrating the experience of choosing and sometimes subtly adjusting the final direction, acting like a storyteller entering a performance already underway, not creating choice from nothing but shaping and interpreting it. This does not reduce free will but places it within a layered system where reflexes, habits, emotions, and conscious deliberation all contribute to human agency. And the moment of conscious awareness becomes a unique window through which reflection, intentional change, and self-understanding can emerge. Across the natural world, animals display extraordinary sensory and communicative abilities that expand our understanding of intelligence. Elephants, for instance, coordinate their movements through vibrations that travel through the ground, sending and receiving low-frequency rumblings and tremors that pass through soil and rock. And sensitive receptors in their feet and trunks allow them to detect messages from companions far beyond visual range. Young elephants learn to interpret these subtle ground-borne signals by following older herd members and feeling faint rhythms beneath their feet, and over long distances the earth itself becomes a channel of communication that binds the herd together, enabling coordinated travel, warnings of danger, and guidance for stragglers, turning the landscape into a living conduit of shared awareness that allows these massive animals to move as one intricate network. Creativity in humans relies on a similar interplay of cooperation and communication, unfolding through a delicate balance between brain networks that specialize in control, discipline, and goal-directed behavior, and others that favor free association, imagination, and wandering thought. These networks do not simply alternate roles but engage in a dynamic push and pull, where imaginative regions generate possibilities unconstrained by rules, while executive regions evaluate, refine, and organize these ideas into coherent forms. Sometimes they conflict, with disciplined control attempting to suppress playful ideas or daydreaming resisting structure, but when creativity flows smoothly, the two systems enter a productive tension where freedom is guided but not restricted, and structure is present but not suffocating, producing the vibrant, innovative thinking that gives rise to new inventions, art, and scientific breakthroughs. Across oceans, even creatures like cuttlefish demonstrate memory resembling episodic recall, navigating shifting underwater landscapes by remembering specific details of past experiences, including the time of day, patterns of light, and the locations of prey and predators. Their inner timelines allow them to adjust behavior with remarkable sophistication, recalling which hiding places offered safety, which hunting grounds replenished quickly, and where danger lurked, and unlike many species whose memory fades with age, cuttlefish retain this clarity throughout their lives, using a fusion of perception, recollection, and anticipation to move confidently through complex terrain shaped by tides, shadows, and countless past encounters. Meanwhile, sleep plays an essential role in strengthening hidden patterns the mind absorbs during waking hours, reinforcing the countless impressions that slip beneath conscious notice. Snippets of conversation, fleeting visual patterns, subtle emotional shifts, rhythms of movement, and thousands of small moments that settle into neural circuits. During sleep, especially as the brain moves through its layered cycles, these fragments reawaken in bursts of neural activity that sort, replay, integrate, and refine them, gradually transforming faint traces into lasting knowledge. During lighter stages of rest, the brain replays waking experiences, and during deeper stages, it strengthens the most meaningful patterns, linking related impressions and stabilizing them. So musicians awaken with improved fluency, language learners speak with smoother cadence, and problem solvers find clarity where confusion once stood. Sleep becomes an invisible teacher working in the quiet hours, shaping cognitive growth while awareness drifts, stitching learning into the brain's architecture and revealing that intelligence deepens not only through effort but through the brain's quiet nighttime craftsmanship. Even underwater, some fish display geometric understanding by building complex structures that require spatial reasoning, symmetry, and artistic precision, further proving that intelligence is not a single thread running through evolution but a vast tapestry woven from countless adaptations, each revealing new layers of memory, creativity, communication, and awareness that challenge the borders of what the human mind once believed possible. Beneath clear water and wide sandy plains, certain fish construct astonishing circular formations composed of ridges and valleys with meticulous precision, spanning impressive distances and requiring sustained effort and extraordinary motor control, as they sweep the sand in repetitive motions, constantly adjusting the depth of grooves and carefully managing symmetry, orienting their bodies along deliberate arcs, revisiting sections repeatedly to refine each detail until the entire formation achieves elegant balance. Though guided by instinct, these creatures exhibit awareness of spatial relationships, monitoring angles, aligning contours, and correcting disturbances caused by drifting sand or shifting currents, holding the complex blueprint in memory throughout the construction process, adjusting every segment with subtle responsiveness to environmental change, producing structures that resemble underwater mandalas, simultaneously serving as displays for potential mates and as demonstrations of sophisticated motor intelligence, revealing that instinctual behavior can integrate geometry, planning, and memory in ways that parallel human understanding of form and space. Human intelligence, in contrast, emerges from interactions between countless microscopic networks operating simultaneously, each performing specialized tasks. Some detect sounds and shapes, others capture fleeting impressions for use in the next thought, while still others evaluate emotion, manage planning, construct language, or connect present experiences with past memories. With no single network carrying the full burden of cognition, yet the dynamic alliances formed between these circuits produce thought, insight, and creativity, as networks coordinate rhythms during reflection, exchange signals along intricate pathways, and when challenged, temporarily unite to generate novel solutions, dissolving back into independent function once the challenge passes. And this continual formation and reformation allows the mind to adapt rapidly to changing environments, demonstrating that intelligence resides not in isolation but in the harmony of countless contributors working in dynamic balance. Observations in the natural world illustrate similar principles. Certain birds practice songs in sleep, their brains rehearsing melodies absorbed during daylight hours, as young birds internalize adult songs that signal territory and identity. While the forest grows quiet at night, neural circuits governing vocalization replay fragments of the day's learning without physical movement, activating sequences identical to those controlling real singing, refining pitch, timing, and rhythm, and over weeks or months of nocturnal rehearsal, birds awaken at dawn with melodies honed by these silent sessions, a phenomenon that underscores how sleep consolidates learning, transforms scattered notes into coherent structures, and illustrates that intelligence can flourish in states of unconscious refinement, paralleling broader principles of memory and skill acquisition across species. Human problem-solving similarly benefits from energetic efficiency. When confronting challenges, the mind may not always rely on intense exertion but instead shifts to quieter, more organized modes of neural activity, concentrating resources along pathways most relevant to the task, reducing unnecessary firing, and allowing subtle connections to emerge that might be overlooked during stress or mental strain. The mental landscape becomes less cluttered, tangled problems unravel, and insights surface naturally, reflecting a form of intelligence grounded in harmony, patience, and the careful orchestration of neural activity rather than in brute force of attention. Across primates, social intelligence reveals itself through observation and inference. Monkeys living in complex groups read intentions from gestures, subtle postures, and fleeting movements, interpreting relaxed reaches as peaceful intent, slight hesitations as uncertainty, or tightened stances as challenge, adjusting their behavior accordingly to support allies, avoid conflicts, or initiate cooperation. These perceptive skills mirror the development of human social understanding, strengthening group cohesion and minimizing conflict, and emerge naturally from immersion in socially rich environments where interpretation, anticipation, and adaptation are constantly tested. Human thought, in turn, demonstrates an extraordinary capacity for synchrony across minds. In deep conversation, two individuals can enter a form of mental resonance, attention aligning and emotional states harmonizing, as brain rhythms become compatible and a temporary shared cognitive landscape forms. Communication flows effortlessly, understanding deepens, and the alignment strengthens when trust is present or when discussions touch on meaningful topics, revealing the profoundly social nature of cognition and the potential for thought to extend beyond individual boundaries. In other social mammals, intelligence manifests through the observation of conflict and resolution. Young wolves, for instance, absorb the complexities of pack dynamics by watching quarrels over food, rank, and territory, noting postures, gestures, and timing that determine escalation or resolution, gradually constructing mental frameworks that guide future behavior, maintain harmony, and reduce unnecessary violence. Over time, these observations inform strategies for negotiation, leadership, and cooperation, demonstrating that intelligence encompasses the subtle accumulation of socially relevant knowledge and the ability to navigate unspoken rules that maintain group stability. Similarly, humans employ mental shortcuts honed over years of experience, detecting patterns and cues in their environment that guide rapid decision-making. A slight tonal shift may indicate emotion, a subtle visual pattern may reveal a hidden relationship, and familiar structural arrangements can suggest likely outcomes. These cognitive heuristics, although occasionally misleading, reflect the depth of experiential learning and the brain's capacity to act quickly in complex situations, highlighting that intelligence extends beyond deliberate reasoning into the quiet accumulation of pattern recognition and contextual sensitivity. Even birds provide compelling examples of causal and abstract understanding. Some species manipulate fire or tools in ways that imply comprehension of consequences, demonstrating that cognition can involve foresight, planning, and experimentation beyond simple trial and error learning. Across aquatic realms, problem-solving manifests through geometric construction, as seen in fish that engineer intricate circular sand formations. These creations, extending meters in diameter, require the fish to maintain memory of the design, adjust motion precisely, and respond to disturbances with continuous correction, reflecting spatial awareness, planning, and procedural intelligence. In humans, the architecture of thought relies on constant interaction between modular networks that specialize yet collaborate, forging novel pathways in response to new challenges, integrating sensory input, memory, reasoning, and emotional evaluation, and producing insights that could not arise from isolated processes, illustrating that intelligence is emergent, dynamic, and fundamentally relational within the brain's structure. Across species, the refinement of skill, learning, and social cognition occurs both through direct practice and through states of rest, as seen in sleeping birds, problem-solving efficiency in humans, and nocturnal consolidation of learning across mammals, revealing that intelligence is not merely active calculation but also the subtle organization and integration of knowledge during periods of low overt activity. Furthermore, memory extends beyond the brain itself in some species, with neural and immune systems recording environmental patterns, stress responses, and prior experiences, shaping physiological states, and even influencing subsequent generations, thereby distributing intelligence across the body and lifespan. Demonstrating that cognition is an organism-wide phenomenon integrating past experience, present context, and anticipatory adaptation. In addition, animals like cuttlefish exhibit episodic memory, recalling detailed contexts of past encounters, adjusting behavior with foresight, and maintaining this capacity with remarkable clarity throughout life, underscoring that intelligence involves the seamless integration of perception, recollection, and anticipation to navigate complex environments effectively. Sleep further consolidates these processes, allowing the brain to reinforce hidden patterns absorbed during waking experience, sorting fragments of information such as overheard words, glimpsed patterns, shifts in tone, and subtle rhythms, replaying and linking them into coherent, lasting knowledge, turning partial or vague impressions into accessible understanding, enhancing musicianship, linguistic fluency, and problem solving in ways that highlight the unseen, iterative processes supporting intelligence. Across the animal kingdom, other examples of cognitive sophistication abound. Elephants coordinate movement through ground-borne vibrations, perceiving signals beyond visual range to maintain group cohesion. Ants optimize foraging routes via chemical communication, creating a decentralized yet collectively intelligent network that adapts in real time. Parrots grasp abstract concepts of sameness and difference, revealing convergent evolution of cognition. Otters transmit tool use techniques through social observation, reflecting cultural inheritance, and manta rays display curiosity suggestive of self-awareness. All these examples illuminate intelligence as an emergent property of complex systems, whether neural, social, or organism-wide, showing that cognition thrives on observation, memory, imitation, adaptation, and creativity. Human cognition, similarly, integrates perception, memory, social interaction, and imaginative projection, allowing us to synthesize past experiences into novel ideas, navigate uncertain environments, and coordinate with others, whether in conversation, collaborative problem-solving, or the creation of art and science. In each case, intelligence is relational, distributed, adaptive, and profoundly shaped by both environment and experience, emerging not as a singular trait but as a dynamic interplay among systems, networks, and organisms that together produce understanding, foresight, creativity, and the capacity to respond to the infinite variability of life. Across certain dry landscapes, a few remarkable birds have learned to exploit the destructive power of fire with a level of awareness rarely seen outside primates. When flames sweep through tall grass, these birds wait at the edges for fleeing insects, yet their intelligence extends far beyond opportunistic feeding. They sometimes pick up burning sticks, carry them to unburned patches of land, and deliberately drop them into dry brush, causing fires that flush insects from hiding and create new hunting grounds. For this behavior to succeed, the bird must predict that a burning ember will ignite fresh fuel, that the flames will advance across the grass, and that prey will scatter as fire spreads, all while handling the ember carefully to avoid injury, placing it precisely where ignition is most likely. Such actions suggest an understanding of cause and effect robust enough to model fire behavior, knowledge that cannot rely solely on instinct because the technique shifts depending on wind, fuel moisture, and temperature. Instead, it emerges from experience, memory, and experimentation within a dangerous element capable of reshaping the environment itself. Human intelligence similarly benefits when we construct mental models of entire systems rather than focusing narrowly on isolated details. When we attempt to understand a forest, a community, a scientific principle, or the internal workings of a machine, the brain must track relationships among multiple moving parts, anticipate how changes ripple through interconnected elements, and update predictions as new information arrives, a process that strengthens reasoning, working memory, and abstraction while fostering flexible thinking, because systems rarely behave linearly. People who habitually form broad mental models grow better at planning, innovation, and adaptation, detecting hidden patterns and complexity and foreseeing outcomes invisible to minds focused only on fragments, holding entire structures in mind and allowing intelligence to operate across layers of reality rather than at a single point. Primates exemplify this in social contexts, understanding reciprocity and tracking social debts over years. Individuals remember who offered support, shared food, or withheld help during critical moments, shaping long-term strategies. A primate groomed during hardship may later assist that benefactor in a territorial dispute, while another ignored in a moment of need may withhold help when the neglectful companion seeks aid. These exchanges unfold not through immediate trade but through long-term tracking of relationships, requiring judgment, memory, and the ability to connect past behavior with future decisions, as well as restraint, since the benefits of social bonds extend far beyond a single encounter. Over years, remembered debts form the foundation of alliances, peacekeeping, and stability, showing that primates perceive social life as a web of obligations that must be honored to preserve harmony. Human memory similarly strengthens when new knowledge connects to personal meaning. Information learned without context fades quickly, slipping as easily from awareness as it entered, yet when knowledge resonates with experience or emotion, memory deepens, as the brain binds new material to existing networks of significance, weaving it into the fabric of identity. This connection activates areas involved in emotion, narrative, and long-term storage, anchoring knowledge firmly. Students linking scientific ideas to curiosity retain them longer, readers relating characters to their own feelings remember stories vividly, and anyone tying abstract lessons to lived experience strengthens retention almost automatically, transforming memory from passive storage into active integration. Across the oceans, certain sharks navigate with astonishing precision using Earth's magnetic field as a natural map, returning year after year to the same feeding or breeding grounds. Their bodies contain specialized cells detecting subtle shifts in magnetic intensity and orientation, allowing sharks to gather environmental signatures and build internal representations of the world, functioning like a compass layered upon a global map. When currents change or storms disturb familiar regions, sharks still locate destinations by referencing the unseen structure of the planet itself, interpreting variations in magnetic fields, updating internal maps, and adjusting course, demonstrating an ancient intelligence attuned to the Earth's fabric, a navigation that relies on more than instinct because magnetic cues vary with depth, location, and time. Human insight similarly accelerates when mental rest follows intense effort. During demanding cognitive tasks, the mind often reaches a point where further effort produces only confusion, yet stepping back, resting, or shifting focus allows insights to emerge with clarity. As neural networks previously overloaded begin to settle into coherent patterns, hidden relationships among ideas strengthen. Irrelevant noise fades and fragments drift into new configurations inaccessible during strain. Explaining why breakthroughs often occur during walks, quiet moments, or gentle routines rather than at the height of effort, illustrating that rest is not absence of thought but a space where deeper connections form beyond deliberate awareness. Orangutans demonstrate flexible foresight through improvisation in dense rainforests, encountering obstacles, hidden food, or unreachable resources that demand more than instinct. Instead of relying on learned routines, they select branches of suitable thickness to test stability, strip leaves to fashion tools, or combine objects to achieve goals, showing the ability to imagine future outcomes and plan toward them. Their foresight reflects sophisticated cause and effect reasoning and adapts to changing circumstances. Broken tools are replaced, environmental shifts prompt strategy modification, and improvisation emerges from observation, memory, and flexible intelligence shaped by forest life. Human intelligence similarly thrives when diverse ideas interact within a single mind, as creativity and insight flourish when unrelated knowledge domains collide, producing combinations that would not arise from a single discipline. Someone versed in art and mathematics may discover patterns invisible to specialists. A storyteller engineer may find solutions blending imagination and structure. And these internal collisions foster cognitive flexibility, broaden perspective, and encourage novel thinking, making diversity of thought a catalyst for innovation by allowing connections across distant fields. Across other species, remarkable cognitive capacities continue to reveal the widespread emergence of intelligence. Fish create elaborate circular sand structures, using memory, spatial reasoning, and motor precision to manipulate geometry without visual guidance. Elephants coordinate movement via ground-borne vibrations, perceiving signals imperceptible to humans, maintaining herd cohesion over vast distances. Cuttlefish retain episodic memory, recalling locations, environmental conditions, and predator presence to navigate complex underwater landscapes with foresight. Parrots grasp abstract concepts of sameness and difference, demonstrating convergent evolution of higher cognition. Otters transmit tool-use knowledge socially, reflecting cultural inheritance. And certain birds manipulate fire to hunt, implying causal understanding. In humans, cognition emerges from interactions among countless microscopic neural networks, each specialized yet interdependent. Some monitor sound and shape, others capture fleeting impressions, evaluate emotion, manage planning, construct language, or integrate past experience. With no single network holding full intelligence, yet alliances among them generate thought, insight, and creativity. Networks coordinate during reflection, temporarily unite to solve problems, and dissolve once the challenge ends, permitting rapid adaptation, problem-solving efficiency, and the generation of novel ideas. Sleep further consolidates these processes. The brain absorbs fragments of information, overheard words, glimpsed patterns, subtle tonal shifts, storing them in neural circuits. During sleep, these fragments are replayed, linked, and stabilized, transforming vague impressions into accessible knowledge, enhancing skills from music to language to problem solving. Showing that intelligence relies not only on conscious effort but also on integration during unconscious states. Social intelligence also permeates cognition. Monkeys infer intentions from gestures, young wolves observe conflict resolution to understand hierarchy, and human minds can synchronize during deep conversation, creating temporary shared cognitive landscapes that facilitate communication and understanding, revealing intelligence as both individual and profoundly social. Across species, intelligence manifests through observation, imitation, improvisation, memory, anticipation, planning, and cultural transmission, illustrating that cognition is emergent, distributed, adaptive, and relational, shaped by environment, experience, and complex system interactions, whether in navigating forests, oceans, skies, or social hierarchies. Human and animal intelligence alike emerges from the integration of perception, memory, imagination, social context, and environmental feedback, creating internal models, forming flexible strategies, practicing and rehearsing skills, coordinating with others, and exploiting both learned and spontaneous insights, all reflecting a pattern in which cognitive capacity expands through engagement with complexity, interconnection, and challenge. Across ecosystems, species demonstrate specialized capacities for learning, adaptation, and foresight. Birds rehearse song during sleep to perfect melodies, cuttlefish navigate reefs using episodic memory, fish engineer geometric structures in sand, elephants sense distant movements via vibrations, sharks map oceans magnetically, orangutans improvise tools, and fire-carrying birds manipulate their environment intentionally. Together, these examples illustrate intelligence as a distributed, emergent phenomenon that transcends human experience, integrating memory, perception, motor skill, social cognition, and environmental awareness. While human cognition amplifies these capabilities through abstraction, planning, system-level thinking, and integration of diverse knowledge domains, revealing that intelligence operates at multiple layers simultaneously, from neural microcircuits to social networks to organism-wide. Awareness, producing understanding, foresight, problem-solving, creativity, and the capacity to navigate the infinite variability of life itself, demonstrating that cognition, whether human or non-human, is a product of complex interaction, observation, experimentation, memory, anticipation, and adaptive response, dynamically unfolding across space, time, and circumstance in ways that continuously expand the boundaries of possible understanding. The more varied the internal landscape, the more paths exist for intelligence to travel, and pigeons provide a striking example of abstract reasoning once thought possible only in large-brained animals. In controlled experiments, these birds demonstrate the ability to categorize objects not by memorizing individual examples, but by identifying general principles that apply across variations, distinguishing patterns involving relative size, shape, or brightness even when the specific items change each trial, revealing a grasp of abstract concepts and the flexible application of rules rather than reliance on repetition, which suggests that intelligence depends not solely on brain size but on the organization and efficiency of neural circuits capable of processing complex visual relationships, forcing scientists to reconsider the prevalence of abstract reasoning across the natural world. Human cognition, in turn, evolves within cultural contexts that transmit knowledge far more rapidly than genetic evolution could achieve, as each individual inherits a world of stories, tools, symbols, and practices created by countless predecessors, providing an external memory system that amplifies the capacity of isolated minds. As people learn from one another, refine ideas, expand skills, and accumulate shared insight, cultural evolution allows innovations to spread quickly, layering understanding upon understanding, transforming cognition within a single lifetime, and shaping thought, problem-solving, and imagination in ways that produce intelligence not merely as a property of individuals but as a product of collaborative networks acting across time. Language learning exemplifies this principle, as human brains detect minute patterns and streams of sound long before a child understands the meaning of a single word, absorbing rhythm, melody, and statistical structures automatically, identifying repeating fragments and associations between sounds, carving boundaries between words never presented as discrete units, and distinguishing multiple language systems simultaneously, which strengthens connections representing useful regularities while pruning irrelevant ones, forming a scaffold upon which meaning is later layered and demonstrating that the acquisition of communication begins not with vocabulary but with finely tuned pattern detection that transforms unbroken sound into a structured map of interaction. Artificial neural networks mirror these processes, developing unanticipated strategies when trained to solve complex problems, reorganizing information, building internal representations, discovering shortcuts akin to those in nature, clustering concepts, compressing data into meaningful structures, forming layers of abstraction, and navigating new situations. Sometimes echoing features observed in animal brains, such as sparse coding, modular organization, and gradual refinement of internal models, which highlights that intelligence, biological or artificial, follows universal principles of learning, requiring filtering of noise, detection of relevant structure, and formation of stable predictions, whether in silicon circuits or networks of neurons shaped by evolution. Among insects, intelligence emerges in subtle and unexpected ways, such as the use of stem vibrations for covert communication, where pulses travel through plant structures rather than air, conveying information about danger, location, or readiness to mate while remaining largely undetectable by predators, with species-specific rhythms, intensities, and adaptive adjustments to environmental conditions, revealing that even tiny nervous systems can exploit physical properties to transmit and interpret knowledge, demonstrating that intelligence arises wherever life encounters constraints that reward flexible, efficient solutions. Human thinking similarly deepens when confronting questions without clear answers, as uncertainty stretches cognition beyond familiar pathways, forcing experimentation, novel connections, and exploration of perspectives outside routine patterns. This cognitive openness fosters creativity, insight, tolerance for ambiguity, strengthened reasoning, and heightened curiosity, showing that even when definitive answers remain elusive, the act of grappling with uncertainty expands the mental landscape, encourages reflection and imagination, and nurtures cognitive wandering that supports innovation, highlighting that intelligence grows not merely from the application of known solutions but from engagement with the unknown. Primates demonstrate this capacity in material interaction, modifying tools to solve complex problems, reshaping sticks, stones, or leaves to improve effectiveness, sharpening, shortening, or thickening them to optimize outcomes, reflecting foresight, memory, and experimentation, as well as the recognition that tools function as extensions of the body, intermediaries linking intention to environment, and exhibiting causal reasoning grounded in observation, insight, and understanding of physical laws rather than trial and error alone. Across species, intelligence manifests in diverse behaviors. Birds manipulate fire to flush prey and create hunting grounds. Fish construct intricate sand patterns requiring precision and spatial awareness. Orangutans improvise solutions to extract inaccessible food. Elephants detect distant movements via ground vibrations. Cuttlefish recall episodic memory to navigate reefs. Parrots discern abstract concepts, sharks navigate oceans magnetically, wolves learn social hierarchies by observation, and young birds rehearse songs during sleep, all of which illustrate cognition emerging from memory, perception, motor coordination, anticipation, and adaptive response within environmental and social contexts. Human intelligence, magnified by culture, diversity of experience, and reflection, benefits from forming mental models of entire systems, integrating multiple layers of abstraction, holding dynamic relationships in mind, anticipating the ripple effects of changes, and adjusting strategies based on feedback, which strengthens reasoning, working memory, and flexibility. Similarly, artificial systems emulate these strategies when learning through pattern detection, abstraction, and representation, suggesting that intelligence arises wherever systems, biological or artificial, must interpret, predict, and adapt within complex, noisy environments. Memory itself is structured by relevance and emotional resonance, as knowledge tied to personal experience is retained far more effectively than decontextualized facts, and sleep or rest consolidates learning, enabling neural networks to reorganize, prune irrelevant connections, strengthen relevant ones, and generate insights inaccessible during intense cognitive strain. Which underscores that intelligence relies not only on active problem-solving but also on passive integration, reflection, and the quiet interplay of mental processes. Social intelligence operates similarly. Primates monitor intentions through gestures, monkeys infer motives in complex hierarchies, humans synchronize thought during conversation, and wolves absorb the rules of social engagement through observation, all of which show that cognition is distributed, emergent, relational, and sensitive to patterns of interaction over time. By integrating perception, memory, foresight, abstraction, improvisation, cultural knowledge, and reflection, cognition, whether in birds, mammals, insects, or humans, adapts to environment, anticipates change, solves novel problems, and produces creative outcomes. It emerges from interactions among internal networks, social structures, environmental feedback, and learned experience. Revealing intelligence as a dynamic, multilayered phenomenon, continuously shaped by context, observation, experimentation, and the capacity to transform information into understanding, action, and innovation. Across animals and humans alike, intelligence manifests not only in immediate problem-solving but also in anticipation, long-term planning, integration of diverse knowledge, and the ability to exploit environmental regularities, whether through abstract categorization, causal reasoning, tool modification, covert communication, memory consolidation, or cultural inheritance. Illustrating that cognition is adaptive, context-sensitive, relational, and emergent, capable of generating insight, creativity, and understanding far beyond the sum of individual experiences, highlighting a universal principle that wherever life interacts with complexity, constraints, or opportunity, intelligence arises as a dynamic, flexible, and multilayered response that bridges perception, memory, action, and foresight, continuously expanding the possibilities of understanding and the capacity to navigate both physical and social worlds. Human intelligence often peaks when we collaborate rather than compete, as individuals can achieve remarkable feats of insight, but collective thought unlocks forms of understanding that do not appear in isolation. When people share ideas, critique assumptions, and build upon each other's thoughts, they create an environment where cognitive strengths combine, allowing one person to notice a pattern another overlooked, someone else to reframe a problem in a clarifying way, and the group as a whole to develop solutions no single member could reach alone, demonstrating that intelligence is not merely an individual trait but a shared capacity that flourishes through connection, communication, empathy, and the integration of diverse perspectives, reflecting humanity's deep evolutionary history in which corporations supported survival and shaped the development of complex thought. Certain whales exemplify cultural intelligence, learning songs that propagate across oceans like waves, producing intricate melodies that evolve over time as individuals introduce new phrases, rhythms, and structures that others adopt, gradually transforming the song into a shared creation spanning thousands of miles and requiring memory, imitation, and sensitivity to subtle acoustic details. Revealing a social intelligence capable of maintaining traditions and shared knowledge across immense distances, and showing how communication, learning, and social bonding intertwine in both human and non-human species to extend cognition beyond the individual. Humans, similarly, think more deeply when immersed in environments that encourage reflection, natural landscapes, quiet spaces, and settings with gentle sensory input reduce mental noise, allowing attention to settle and ideas to unfold with clarity, while enabling memories and insights to surface that might remain buried in more chaotic environments, demonstrating that surroundings can act as a cognitive partner, guiding observation, deep awareness, and careful reflection, providing the mental space for insight, innovation, and creative problem-solving. Some animals display early numerical understanding through subtle neural responses, showing distinct activity when the number of objects in their environment changes unexpectedly, suggesting that sensitivity to quantity emerges naturally rather than through training, allowing animals to judge group size, identify potential threats, or choose advantageous feeding sites. Revealing that intelligence can arise from basic cognitive building blocks long before symbolic thought or formal education. Illustrating continuity across species in the capacity to interpret and respond to environmental information. Human intelligence, in the modern era, continues to expand as we integrate with the machines we create. Technology woven into daily life extends memory through digital storage, amplifies pattern recognition with analytical tools, and enhances exploration of ideas through computational assistance, not replacing thought but expanding its reach, transforming learning, creativity, and understanding, encouraging new forms of problem-solving that blend biological intuition with artificial precision, reshaping communication, collaboration, and the pace of knowledge growth, and forming a hybrid intelligence capable of insights neither humans nor machines could achieve alone, reflecting a cognitive partnership built through constant exchange between organic minds and the tools they design, stretching human intellect into new territories of creativity, foresight, and adaptation. Across species, intelligence manifests in remarkable and diverse ways, from the fish that construct intricate circular sand formations through repetitive, precise motion requiring spatial awareness, to birds that rehearse songs during sleep to refine pitch, timing, and rhythm, to primates that improvise tool use and modify objects to solve problems, demonstrating foresight, experimentation, and an understanding of cause and effect. Monkeys observe gestures to infer intentions and navigate complex social hierarchies. Wolves learn social rules by watching interactions and adjusting behavior to maintain group harmony. And certain insects transmit covert messages through plant vibrations, illustrating that intelligence emerges wherever living systems encounter constraints, opportunities, or environmental complexity that reward flexible, efficient solutions. Memory and learning are central to these cognitive feats. Humans retain information more effectively when new knowledge resonates with personal experience or emotion, binding it to existing networks of significance, while sleep and rest allow neural networks to reorganize, prune irrelevant connections, consolidate understanding, and generate insights inaccessible during active strain. Emphasizing that intelligence relies not only on effortful problem-solving but also on the quiet integration and reconfiguration of ideas over time. Cultural transmission accelerates this process in humans and some non-human animals. Stories, tools, songs, and practices accumulate, refined across generations, allowing collective knowledge to grow at rates far surpassing biological evolution, enabling humans to detect patterns hidden in complexity, anticipate outcomes, and engage in long-term planning. Demonstrating that intelligence is deeply relational, distributed across social networks and shared environments. Abstract reasoning, pattern recognition, and conceptual flexibility arise in unexpected places. Pigeons categorize objects by general principles rather than memorization, showing that cognitive complexity depends on neural organization rather than brain size. Sharks navigate across oceans using magnetic fields, forming internal representations of the unseen planet. Orangutans combine and modify objects to achieve goals, exhibiting foresight and adaptive problem-solving. Certain birds manipulate fire to flush prey, displaying an understanding of cause and effect in dynamic, dangerous environments. Artificial intelligence echoes these biological principles, forming internal representations, clustering concepts, compressing data, building abstractions, and discovering strategies reminiscent of natural problem-solving, highlighting universal computational strategies shared across systems when interpreting complex information, filtering noise, and generating stable predictions. Humans enhance cognition further when engaging with uncertainty, exploring questions with no clear answers, which stretches thought beyond familiar patterns, encourages experimentation, creativity, tolerance for ambiguity, and reflection, expanding the mental landscape even when definitive solutions remain elusive. And demonstrating that intelligence grows through engagement with the unknown as much as through applied knowledge. Social cognition reinforces these processes. Primates track reciprocity and social debts over years, monitoring fairness, remembering past interactions, and adjusting behavior accordingly. While human conversation can synchronize thought across individuals, creating temporary shared mental landscapes, illustrating that intelligence is both an individual and collective phenomenon, emergent from interaction, observation, and shared understanding. Across natural and human systems alike, intelligence emerges from the interplay of memory, perception, foresight, abstraction, improvisation, cultural knowledge, and reflection, enabling the navigation of complex environments, anticipation of change, creative problem-solving, and adaptation, demonstrating that cognition is dynamic, multilayered, and context-sensitive, arising wherever living systems encounter challenge, opportunity, or complexity, continuously expanding understanding, innovation, and the capacity to engage with both the physical and social worlds. In reflective moments, humans benefit from stillness and quiet, environments that reduce sensory overload and mental noise, allowing attention to settle, insights to emerge, and ideas to be restructured in meaningful ways, illustrating the importance of rest, reflection, and environmental support in maximizing cognitive potential. Ultimately, intelligence in humans and other species can be understood as a flexible, adaptive phenomenon, shaped by experience, social interaction, environmental feedback, and the capacity to integrate multiple layers of knowledge, memory, and perception into coherent, actionable understanding, producing creative insight, adaptive strategies, and culturally transmitted knowledge that together reveal the astonishing diversity, depth, and subtlety of cognitive life on Earth. As minds drift to rest, the interplay of these capacities continues quietly, memory consolidates, patterns strengthen, and insight ripples subtly through neural networks, underscoring that intelligence is never static but a continuous process of observation, integration, adaptation, and growth that spans species, environments, and even the integration of human thought with technological systems, reflecting a living continuum of understanding, creativity, and adaptation that flows through all complex life. In this expansive view, intelligence is not confined to problem-solving or knowledge alone but emerges in the full spectrum of interaction between mind, environment, culture, and technology, demonstrating that the capacity to perceive, adapt, learn, and innovate is a pervasive, dynamic, and relational property of living systems, echoing through neurons, neural circuits, social structures, and ecological networks, and revealing that the evolution and expression of intelligence, whether in humans, animals, or artificial systems, is a process of continuous refinement, integration, and exploration across multiple scales of experience, memory, perception, and interaction. As the mind settles and attention softens, the patterns traced across thought, memory, and experience form an intricate, invisible architecture that supports insight, creativity, and reflection, quietly connecting individual cognition to collective knowledge, environmental understanding, and technological augmentation, and illustrating that intelligence is simultaneously a personal and shared phenomenon, emerging from the interweaving of countless processes, interactions, and experiences that together generate the depth, flexibility, and adaptability characteristic of conscious life. Across oceans, forests, skies, and human communities, intelligence manifests as a dynamic interplay of observation, experimentation, social learning, pattern recognition, memory integration, and adaptive problem-solving, continuously refined through cultural transmission, environmental feedback, and technological augmentation, showing that cognition is both context-sensitive and emergent, arising wherever life interacts with complexity, challenge, or opportunity, revealing an enduring continuum that links humans, animals, and artificial systems through shared principles of learning, adaptation, and innovation, and demonstrating that the exploration of intelligence, its forms, functions, and manifestations, illuminates the profound capacity of living systems to understand, manipulate, and creatively engage with the world around them, producing insight, culture, knowledge, and innovation that extend across generations, species, and ecological and technological networks, reflecting the deep interconnections among perception, memory, reasoning, social interaction, and creative problem-solving that define the living mind in all its astonishing diversity and subtlety.